Where and when were you born?
I was born a mile and a half west of Carmel, in the house there, in 1923.
What were you told about your birth and infancy, and who told you?
Nothing and nobody.
Is there any special significance to your name, or were you named after anyone?
Yes. My parents had 3 children first, and they gave those 3 children, they were all named after grandpas and grandmas. My sister got the name of both grandmas. The 2 boys got the name of the other 2 grandmas. And then there were 8 years, no children. Then I came along, and they thought, well, we better name her after both of us. So they put John and Greta together and made it Junaida.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
And then 15 months later, Melvin John came along unexpectedly.
Did you have a nickname?
Well, my little nephews and nieces called me Nada.
How many people were in your family?
There were 5 children.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
3 brothers and 1 sister.
Did you have any family pets?
Not in the house, but my dad raised purebred English shepherds and purebred rat terriers, and every year we had litters of puppies that we played with before they were sold, and they were sold around 2 months old. So we played with lots of puppies.
I like doing that too. Where did you grow up?
I grew up there. All of us did. That was our home place.
What kind of activities did you do as a child?
We didn't have toys. The 3 older children, I guess, had more toys than we did because my brother and I were born during what they called the Great Depression, and we had the leftover toys that they played with. We had a coaster without tires on the wheels, but it worked. We played mostly with just our own things, our own imagination. For one thing, I do remember when we were about 10 years old, we'd have playhouses. We'd make a playhouse in the grove. We'd put twine rope around different trees for the walls. And then in the summer, we'd move to the corn crib when the corn was all out of the corn crib, and we'd make cupboards in the corners of the cupboards in the corners by putting boards across the corners. But we were allowed to use the tools in the tool shed. And so my mom always canned a lot of fruit, and the apples all came in wooden crates, wooden boxes. And we took those wooden boxes apart and saved all the nails, and then we might use the saws and the hammer. And we would make furniture for our playhouse out of those wooden crates. And we did a lot of homemade things like that.
Okay. What work or chores did you have to do?
I always had a haul in the fuel, and that consisted of 2 baskets of cobs and 2 baskets of wood and a bucket of coal, 1 or 2 buckets of coal for the 2 stoves. We had an old-fashioned cook stove that used the cobs and wood, and we had a coal stove that used the hard coal, and it was in the dining room.
Were you paid an allowance?
No, we weren't. I also milked some cows when I got a little older. I milked a lot of cows as I got older.
Who were your childhood heroes?
Lawrence Welk. And oh dear, I liked music a lot, and I liked a lot of musical people. And Lawrence Welk was my favorite thing to listen to on the radio.
With whom did you share your secrets and schemes?
Oh dear, I don't know if I had anybody special. I don't think, I can't think of anybody in particular. We just had friends, neighbor kids, our country school kids.
When did you start school?
I was 5. I didn't have kindergarten. They didn't have that in those days. So I just started in 1st grade at 5.
Okay. How did you get to school?
Walked, and in the winter, if it was very cold, my big brother would bring us on horseback.
Do you have any favorite memories of school?
Oh, I have lots of memories. I loved Loved school.
Who was your favorite teacher?
I liked them all. I had a Miss Scouten was her name for the first 4 years. And I didn't have a nice doll. I had a leftover doll of my sister. And she gave me a baby doll for Christmas present, the first Christmas when I was in first grade. And I loved that lady. And she was nice, too. But Mrs. Walter Post was my teacher in 7th and 8th grade. And she introduced me and all of us to a lot of new things that we hadn't had before in country school. And I took penmanship later in life because it wasn't offered in the younger years. And so I learned a lot. She was a good teacher and a good mentor. I liked her a lot. And yet I liked the others too, but she was a favorite, I think.
Yeah. What was your homework like?
I didn't usually have to have homework. We did everything in school. It was all academics until Friday afternoon. At last recess we had art. Otherwise it was all academics, but we had 2 recesses and a noon hour. But if I had a new math to start with, and I couldn't get it right away, I could take it home, and then my dad would help me, and he wouldn't give me any answers. He'd just ask questions. And he'd read the written problems. He'd read it, and then he'd say, well, now what do you think you need here, more or less? Maybe less, yeah, less. Well, then what do? Add or subtract? That's how he helped me.
How were your school experiences like and different from school today?
Oh, a lot different. I think when we were in the 7th and 8th grade with Mrs. Post, we went to play ball with another school during our art time on Friday afternoon, maybe 2 or 3 times, but otherwise it was all academics in school. And recess, we played our own games. We played pum pum pull away and last couple out and ante over and all that sort of stuff. We didn't have we did have giant strides. I don't know if you know what they are. It's a great big pole and it has about 8 swings on it that you hold with rods that you hold on, and then you swing around that big pole. And then to get yourself real high, you go over everybody else till you're way around it, and then they'd all pull, and then you'd go real high because you'd go over all these other kids then again. That's the only thing we had on our school ground when I was in school.
Describe a usual evening in your home while you were growing up.
They were all pretty much alike, and my favorite evenings were the winter, and we'd have supper, and after supper we'd all sit in the dining room, and we had a coal heater in there. It was all chrome. It was a big high stove, and it had little isinglass windows on 3 sides of it. And the flames would come showing those little isinglass windows, and they'd flicker. And then they'd have little chrome fenders on it where you could put your feet on. And my mom would be sitting there crocheting rugs, throw rugs for the door, out of old clothing and stuff, and my dad would be sleeping in his rocking chair, and we kids would be sitting around the stove, and we'd be listening to the radio, and it was an old battery radio in those days, but we'd all be listening to the radio and reading and whatever, and those were nice evenings. And I don't know if you care to know this, but that's where your grandpa and I did our dating by that wonderful stove with the light burning and flickering, just like a fireplace. So.
What did you do on the weekends?
Went to catechism every Saturday during the school year, and in the summer, every weekend we just played around. And when we were kids, and when I was old enough, I had to start dusting and cleaning and helping. But no, we just played outside. I went outside a lot with my brother, my younger brother, and I was a tomboy, and we played outside in the haymow. Tarzan with those haymow ropes, and we'd drown out squirrels because the squirrels would eat the corn. And when it was coming up in the spring, they eat those little kernels of corn. And so they wanted the squirrels away, so my brother and I would carry buckets of water to the pasture and take our rat terrier dog along, and we'd drown them out and get rid of the squirrels. And I was a tomboy. I was not a lady.
Share some of your happy memories of your childhood or homeland.
Oh, we would would go to the neighbors to play. The neighbors would come by us to play. And in the wintertime, we had a neighbor that had a real steep hill from the yard all the way down to the creek. It went about, not so far from a quarter of a mile. We'd take a little run and we'd go way down to the creek with our sleds on a belly flop. And we'd play in the hay mow. And I had an uncle who had a bunch of kids, and they would come in Christmas vacation with their wagon. They had horses in front of a little school cart. And they would come, and we'd play up the hay mow, and then we'd play cops and robbers with guns that we made out of the end of a peach box. We'd cut it to the shape of a gun, and then we'd put a spring clothespin with on the butt end of it that you held, and then we'd take another piece of inner tube, a little piece of inner tube about an inch wide. We'd stretch that on there and put the target up here, or the holder up here. Then we'd put another piece of inner tube in that real tight, and then when you pinch this clothespin at the handle here, that other one would just fly. And we'd play cops and robbers with those in the hay mow and in the horse barn, through the stanchions, everywhere, just up and down through the barn. We'd chase like crazy after each other. Doesn't sound very ladylike, does it?
Did anyone in your family have any special talents?
My sister played the organ and so on. She was pretty good at playing from notes and everything. I didn't realize it until I got older, though. I had what they call perfect pitch. Mm-hmm. You can give me a note on the piano and I can tell you what it is. And I can also make up songs, and I can also write just the melody. I used to write some too, but the bass too, but I can only write the melody anymore. I can't remember well enough anymore to keep it all together, but I still do write some little things. I wrote some songs for Michelle. Wrote the music to some songs for her. Okay. And I appreciate it. I play the piano now yet, and at my age, it's really a wonderful, wonderful gift because it gives you lots of nice things to do.
Did anyone take any kind of lessons?
We all had to take a few music lessons. My dad came from a very musical family, and we all had to take a certain number of music lessons, and the ones that liked it could keep going. And my sister really did a good job of it. I had music lessons, I don't know just how many years, but I learned to play hymns and all this sort of thing, but I can't play professional music. I didn't have enough lessons for that. But I have enough so that I play by ear a lot. And now I play in the nursing homes by ear. And that's real big fun.
What were some of the rules that your family had?
You may go to dances if they're chaperoned. You do not go to public dances. Oh dear. Lots of them, but I can't think of them. You don't talk back to your parents. And I'd have to think a little bit for that. Maybe you could think of them, but
I don't know.
Yeah, well, if we got into it and if we got unruly, then we got punished.
Yeah. What were the popular dances of your life?
Dances?
Mm-hmm.
We called it square skipping. It's not like square dancing. My folks, my dad, when he was young, they had square dancing, and that's still popular today. But this was square skipping. I don't know if they do it today or not. You had 4 couples in a square,
mm-hmm.
and then you first go back and forth, and then you separate, and then you go this way, and you just keep doing that back and forth, and then you come back and go together and back and forth, and I don't know. I can't really explain it unless you've seen it. But that was and waltzing. I learned some waltzing. Not very many kids learned how to waltz because in that day it was sin to go to dances. And so we mightn't go to public dances, and these private dances, not very many of us knew how to waltz. I knew how, but I didn't have a chance to learn it. But I always wished I could have learned a polka. I thought polka looked like so much fun, but I didn't get the chance to do that either.
What kind of music was popular then?
Oh, Yeah, there was a lot of, what do you call it, professional music.
Mm-hmm.
My favorite was Johann Strauss waltzes. That was my favorite kind of music. I liked, the band, who's a great band leader. I think so. Oh, all the music.
Like big band?
No, the regular John Philip Sousa. Oh, I love John Philip Sousa, and he's got marching band, and the waltzes were Johann Strauss, and the polkas. I bought 3 Austrian polkas when we were in Austria, and I love Austrian polkas too. And I like all kinds of music, everything.
Who were the singers and actors?
Bing Crosby was a crooner, and there was a black woman. I forget what her name was. She was popular.
Billie Holiday. Is that her name?
That was later on, I
Later
guess.
on. Can't think of who else was before her.
From Nashville, we didn't get as much Nashville then as we do now, but popular singers. Oh goodness, I can't think right now. But I know Bing Crosby was a crooner. He was popular. And, who were these in the movies? Jeanette MacDonald and Nelson Eddy, and can't think. I wasn't into movies. We didn't get to go to movies. We didn't get to go away at night a lot on the farm and so much, and so I didn't see very many movies. But
Yeah. When did you learn to drive?
when my oldest son took his learner's, what do you call it, driver's ed, then when he got his driver's license, then I took my driver's ed, I think, because we had moved and I had to learn to drive the car. I was I was close to 40 years old, I think. No, maybe not quite.
Okay. What rules were you given about cars and driving?
Oh, goodness, same thing they do now, yes, because I had to take it over. I let my license expire a couple of years ago, and I had to take my whole thing over. So, yeah, there's a lot of rules. I can't just recite them offhand, but I know.
Yeah. What was the first car you bought?
Your grandpa bought a Model A Ford from my brother-in-law. And he painted it black with yellow wheels. It had a trunk on the back. The first car we bought was a Chevy. And that was a little more modern looking car, but we had that old Model A Ford for quite a long time.
Do you remember how much a gallon of gas cost?
No, but now I go to these birthday parties at the nursing home, and sometimes it's 30-some cents and it's under $1, way under $1 in those days. But then there was not much money because those were the Depression years, so comparatively they weren't cheap. But it was not. So I thought they said 27 cents to one. They go back to when this lady was born, what gas was at her age. The funny thing is, eggs were more expensive then compared to what other things are. But farmers had chickens. Everybody had chickens running all over the yard. You sold a big case of eggs. I think it was 30 dozen of eggs in a double case like this. And then you'd go to the grocery store with those eggs and sell the eggs, and you'd get your groceries back in that big case and take them home, and you'd buy your groceries for your eggs.
Okay.
And so maybe that's why the eggs were worth a lot. That might be kind of interesting.
Yeah. What was dating like when you were young?
Well, we started on Sunday evenings usually. We went to RCYF, and then once in a while we'd go to somebody's home or so, but then we'd go home, eat a little something, and put the radio on, and just sit around that nice big stove there. In summer we'd sit outside or go outside.
Mm-hmm.
And we had parties. We had roller skating parties, and we had what we call these at wedding receptions. We always square skipped at wedding receptions. At mine, we didn't. They weren't as popular later on, but we went to a lot of weddings. And in the summertime, there was no hay in the hay mow yet, but they'd bring their hay in later on, but it would be empty for a while. the boys would clean that hay mow really, really good, and then we'd have a barn party of square skipping. And we might do that. They were chaperoned. I remember when we had our barn party, Melvin was I was about 5, Melvin was about 4, I guess. And they were all dancing up there, and my dad had a harmonica. And just for fun, they usually got a group from Round Valley that played guitar and violins and stuff. But he played that harmonica, and Melvin was sitting piggyback on his back, and he was playing that harmonica, and I still remember that from when I was a little kid at that barn party, and the young people thought that was really neat.
How did you meet your spouse?
Well, I didn't really meet him professionally until he asked me to go home, to take me home one time. But I was washing windows outdoors, and here comes this car on the yard, and he and his dad were on the yard to come and get my dad. My dad was not a veterinarian, but he had a big doctor book, and he usually helped people with sick cows and sick horses and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And he and his dad came on the yard to get my dad they had a sick horse or sick cow. I was washing windows, and they were standing by the door, and I saw that kid with real curly hair standing there. And I wasn't impressed. And then later on, it happened once again. We had to go get water from the pump, and we were going to milk. I was getting ready to milk, so I went and got that bucket of water, and I came by the barn, and there they were standing, talking, and they came to get my dad again. And I walked past him into the barn, same kid with that curly hair. Then, when I was 15, I wasn't allowed to date, but I was going to Girls Society. They used to have like cadets or something, but it was called Girls Society. Mm-hmm. I went to Girls Society, and we had a box luncheon social one time in the winter, and he was there with another girl, but he bought my lunch box. And then we got to talking, but I still wasn't really impressed. Nice kid, but
yeah.
So that was the end of that. And the next year, about a year later, I guess it was, he was at our Sunday school picnic, and here he comes and asked if he could take me home. He was my very first date. And then we went together for a while, and you can't put this in your, we had some church, because we went to different kinds. You can tell them that.
Yeah, different churches.
And so then we'd break up, and then we'd go together again, then we'd break up, and then we'd go together. No, we didn't like anybody else. And pretty soon we started going together for good, and that was it.
What kinds of jobs have you had?
None, just milking my cows for my folks. And then after we got married, I milked cows yet when he'd be in the field or working something. I did a lot of milking a lot of cows. But jobs, no, just bringing in the fuel was when I was a kid.
Did you receive any more schooling after you graduated from high school?
I didn't go to high school. I just had 8 grades.
Oh,
I didn't go to any high school. I had to stay home. My mom had real bad legs, and so she needed some help.
Mm-hmm.
So I stayed home. Well, in that day, I think only 2 kids, one girl out of my class of 7 went to high school. No, really, the country kids didn't go to high school a lot in those days yet.
Mm-hmm. What made you pick the particular school where you went?
Well, you lived in a section. There was 4 sections with a school in the middle, and you had no choice. You just went to that school. That probably means a high school or college, but
Yeah. In your family, what were holiday celebrations like?
well, Thanksgiving the kids would come home and we'd have dinner together, but otherwise we never really had family celebrations. Birthdays weren't celebrated, no big deals about no Christmas parties, no Christmas gifts, no Christmas tree, just very, I guess a lot of people didn't in those days, but maybe the recession had something to do with it too. I don't know, but some of the families did more than we did, but we lived very, very, very modestly, my folks did. We had lots to eat and good clothes, but other things, no, we didn't have much.
Mm-hmm. What do you remember about your children being born?
Well, the oldest one was born in the house, at home. He was the last one of that doctor to deliver in the home. And Oh, yeah, I remember some of it. It was exciting.
And Grandpa forgot your grandpa's name.
Oh, yes, this was, we were living by Middleburg, and this guy came on the yard, and he said, "What did you name the baby?" Here he comes in the house, he said, "What did we name him?"
And that was your grandpa, Marlon.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That was funny. That was funny.
Is there something that you wish you'd have done more often?
Oh, yeah, I guess lots of things I could have done more often. I don't know. Now that I think, you mean all of my life or when I was a child?
I think pretty much all your life.
I wish we could have gone to Holland one more time, and they were going to take us to England and so, and yeah, now both of them. She just, the man died about 3 years ago, I guess. She just died about a month ago. The lady in the band, that was Grandpa's cousin and his wife. We always stayed at each other's houses, and they took us to Austria. That's where I got my Austrian tapes and things. And, yeah, I would have liked to go to Holland. I would have liked to go to the Canadian Rockies too, sometime. But we didn't get to travel a lot. But after the married kids lived in Michigan and Montana, yeah, I'm glad we did that. And I wish we'd have traveled a little more.
Did you belong to any clubs?
No.
What are the 3 most important lessons that you have learned in your life?
When you don't agree with somebody, don't get into a fight. Just try to see where the next person is coming from. See what's making them feel the way they do. And if you both do that, then you eliminate a lot of problems. That was kind of the most important thing I learned, I think. My faith is number one. And, I don't know. I just like people. People. My work, yeah, but my work is not even on the top 3. I like people.
Can you recount the most significant historical event that took place during your lifetime?
That's an historical event. Historical.
Probably the Great Depression would be. That was during when
Well,
you
I
were
wasn't
little,
old
were you?
enough to really feel that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't really feel that, but historical. World War II. We were coming home from CE, RCYF. We were coming home from RCYF, and here this came over the radio. The Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. That really, I think that was the thing that really hit us. When the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. But you know, this recession too, that it's a shock. People didn't see, didn't really want to believe what was coming.
Is there any really memorable trip that you have taken?
Oh yeah, the ones to Holland. And there were other ones too, but Holland was the most important one because I saw quite a bit of Europe. I saw Austria, and it was beautiful.
What is the luckiest thing that ever happened to you?
Your grandpa.
What is the luckiest thing you ever did?
Goodness. Getting married to him, I guess.
Is there any time when you were really afraid?
Yeah.
That ever